Alright, so what have we been doing? We've been doing a ton of different things, and yes, some people would say that we are classifying. We are classifying organisms. If you're going to tell me what a classification is the grouping of organisms. That's all it is. You're grouping organisms, and you're trying to find out which organisms are more similar than other organisms. That's all classification is. Now, the man who gave us the one who gave us the original classification was a guy by the name of Aristotle. You know, we talked about him, but his classification system was how many? There were two domains. It was either a plant or a animal. That was the only two things that he knew about. And that's mainly because the instrumentation that they had or they did not have wasn't able to do all those other things. But since the discovery of more and more creatures that are alive, okay, now we had to come up with another way to be able to break them down in there, okay? And so as the years go on, and we'll see some of that today here as we take a look at chapter 18 in the textbook a little bit, okay, that we'll see that some of the classification systems broke down over the years, okay? But basically what we're trying to do is we're trying to find out how things are similar. Well, the next man that gives us, that's been credited with giving us the classification system was a guy by the name of Linnaeus. Good. And now Linnaeus did something different. He took these creatures and he broke them down into how many categories? Okay, about 6 categories. Really, he broke them down into 5 categories, but he gave us what is called the binomial nomenclature. Two-part name. That's the fancy word for two-part name. So he gave us the two-part name so we can name organisms. That's what Linnaeus did. Aristotle gave us the grouping, but he put everything into the name. All right, and we'll talk a little bit about why that is on this first slide that we have today. All right, and so he did this by breaking it down into the last 2 parts of it called the genus and species. Remember we talked about the genus species? You did that with a little worksheet with the large head and the narrow head, the wide head and the narrow head, but you had 2 names for every single one. Now, what's the purpose of the name? Why do you name something?
What's in that category?
Yeah, it tells you what's in that category. So you had the narrowest heads, and you had the broadest heads, and then each individual thing, you had the broadest cyclops, or no, the narrowest cyclops, and you had the other narrowest problems, or types of aliens. You had all those different things, but they had narrowest or they had broadest there, and what you did was you cataloged things according to head size. All right, but now we are given a 2-part name too. What are we called? Homo sapiens, okay? Now that's a 2-part thing that describes who we are. All right, and now those 2 names come from the genus and species. Okay, and so those are the things that we have done to break down to where we are. But the genus species can be kind of misleading because it all depends on what part of the country you are at as far as some animals are concerned. For instance, we found that we have a little trouble with what animal? As far as the name of it is concerned. The cougar and mountain lion. Why? Because in parts of the country they're called pumas, cougars, mountain lions. Alright, so we have different names for the same organism. So they had to come up with a standard, no matter where you are, that you have these 2 names, and so they'll always know which animal you're talking about, because a cougar is nothing like a lion. Alright, so how do we compare these organisms? Which family or which order or which genus do they fit underneath? Which class do they fit underneath? Some of them, depending on the types of areas, are going to be given a different name. And then also language is a barrier. But Linnaeus' binomial nomenclature puts everything in the same. So no matter where you are in the world, when you say the word Homo sapiens, Every single culture should be able to identify that as being a human being. All right? Okay. So now, this kind of tells you that. Mountain lion, cougar, puma, catamount, or sometimes people refer to as panthers at other parts of the country here. We also have turtles, are sometimes called gophers. Okay, they call turtles gophers in parts of the country. We call gophers a gopher here, but if you're in the Southwest, does anybody know what they call them?
Yes.
Prairie dogs. Yeah, prairie dogs, but the same animal. Okay, they might have a little bit of differences, but they'd be the same animal. So here's what we have here. Obviously, a turtle and a gopher are not the same thing, but they've been given these names. But if you give them their scientific name, the two-part name, you know exactly what you're talking about. Okay? All right, so another one is the misleading thing here that I talked about. Jellyfish are not fish. Jellyfish are not fish, so we give them that name. Someone called them that name, all right, because they were in the water and they seemed like they were swimming around, so they seem like a fish, but they are far from being anything like a fish because a jellyfish doesn't have any spine. So it would not be in the chordata, okay, realm of animals. So jellyfish don't even have a spine, so they're going to be fitting into a different category that lacks the spine. All right, and then we have different organisms like that we have here. Okay, so it could be misleading. So the scientific name, the stuff that I have here, can kind of give us what we're there. So look at A. What do you think A is?
A rat.
What do you think B is?
Camel.
What do you think C is?
Gorilla.
How do you know? Okay. And then what about letter D?
Elephant.
Now again, can you see how they get their scientific name? Because they describe them, or we take the name that we call them from this right here. Okay? So Maximus gives you an idea that we're talking about a very large animal. Okay? So we have all these different things. Yes, so you've got the ratas, okay? Here's the camel, gorilla, and then all of a sudden the elephant. So there are different kinds of elephants, okay? But if you're talking about the largest of all elephants, they would fit into this category. So scientific names not only are universal, but they describe what we're talking about. Roadrunner.
Speedy Oblazi.
Sorry. Okay, I'm just trying to be as funny as I possibly can.
I don't get it.
Okay, they are universal. So no matter where you are in the world, people are going to use those names. No, they don't know the Roadrunner is that. Okay. Anyway, each organism has a unique name, okay, and that name is accepted worldwide. Okay. So the binomial nomenclature, or the scientific name, the binomial nomenclature, is from Linnaeus, and it's a two-name system. All right, and so you'll oftentimes see this in the book. They'll give you this right here, familiaris, all right, and C, capital, so the genus is always capitalized, and the species is small-cased. The species is always named. All right, and so does anybody know what this one is? Not too hard to find out.
Dog.
Good. House dog, I guess. Okay. So genus capitalized, species is lowercase. All right. Usually it's italicized. All right. Sometimes underlined. They don't do that very much anymore. All right. So obviously this is not from the United States, but the picture speaks a thousand words. All right. These are both parts of what we would kind of study here. We've got this one right here. Familiar site in Arizona. If you go to parts of Washington towards the north, you would probably see this as well. You go over to the peninsula, there are areas that you would see this. Its scientific name is called Pinus ponderosa, or we would call it the ponderosa pine. All right? Okay, no matter where you are in the world, this means that. So you know what you're talking about. You've got all these Chinese characters here, but when it comes right down to it, in the Chinese, there's its scientific name right there. Okay, and the scientific name is written in what language? Because that was a universal scientific language at his time, at Linnaeus' time. All right? Okay, so then you've got subspecies. And so here is your turtle, Terrapene carolina, the Carolina turtle, but there's probably other Carolina turtles that are just a little bit different, okay? And so we've got varieties, which are usually referred to as subspecies. Here's the subspecies. Okay, now what do you think that says?
Triangle.
Yeah, tri would be
3.
3 parts, okay? So 3 segmented, okay? 3 segmented. So the jaw is 3 segmented. It would set it apart. All right, and then so then you've got this one here, variety, because there's many different kinds of elm, but the Korean elm would have this right here. Okay, gives you kind of an idea. Okay, now how did we get them? How did we catalog them? We catalog them according to certain categories. Okay, and so the scientific naming followed certain patterns. First of all, it follows because of cell type. Prokaryotes and eukaryotes. Prokaryotes are those things that don't have a nucleus. And then the eukaryotes, or the eukaryotic cells, are all things that have a nucleus. So we would have the earthworms, the plants, all the other animals that are there. Okay, fungi would be in that catalog. Okay, then we have the cells. Cells would be another thing that we would separate categories in. Are they single-celled or are they multicellular? This really does come into play, especially when we're talking about the prokaryotes, which we'll give you examples in a minute. And then also they catalog them according to what they eat. Are they autotrophs, which are, they make their own food, so they would be considered plants? Or are they heterotrophs, which are the ones that go and get their food? And so therefore we would call it carnivora or herbivora. Okay, if you think of a herbivora, okay, if it's in the herbivora family, we're talking about deer, goats. All right, they wouldn't be in the carnivora family, okay, the meat-eating family. All right? Okay, so here is the 5-kingdom system. The 5-kingdom system. We have the two part, which was Aristotle. Aristotle was plants and animals. Then Linnaeus established the 5. Okay, and here are the 5 that he came up with. But that's about 1960s, or I'm sorry, 1770s was when we had the 5. And then about the 1990s, this is what I learned. When I was in school, I learned this. But since then, they changed it. Okay, so the Monera has been changed to 2 other categories. That's why you have the 6. I want you to know the 6. So you don't need to know the monorans. All right, you need to know the protista, fungi, plantae, animalia, archaea, and then bacteria. Those are the 6. So you have a 6-kingdom system that you know of today. And that was established in 1990. And again, all these other things here, they're not that as important to write down. You don't have to memorize them all. If you want them for your notes, that's fine. But when you're talking about the monorans, which are the bacteria, and the archaea, okay, when you have those two categories, they're almost all unicellular organisms. Okay, they're one-celled organisms. So you have the Volvox, the Euglena. Mr. Fisher right now was telling me that for his 5th grade microscope class, he ordered a whole bunch of protists, or a whole bunch of these types of organelles. Okay, and they're going to take a look at them, and they're a lot of unicellular things. So it's kind of cool. He told me he would save some if he did it. He's using a chemical called protoslow. And what it does is these protists don't like light, but if you put this in there, it slows them down. It gives them anesthesia, and then you can see them, because otherwise you normally wouldn't see them. Very cool. Okay, and then you get the protist stuff. These are all eukaryotes. All right, the eukaryotes. Okay, so now this is the 6th kingdom system. This is what you need to know. Here are your two categories. So you need to know these 6 systems. You don't need to know all these things. This is just what they are. But you've got to know the 6. So if I ask you about what are the 6 kingdoms, this is what you would put down. Animalia are good animals. Plantae are
Plants.
fungi.
Fungi.
Protista are protists, okay? And then we've got these two things, the bacteria and the archaeo, or the archaea is what it's called, okay? Which is the archaeobacteria is the more technical name, but you'll know it as Archaea. Archaea. Now they call it ancient bacteria. Guess why? This fits perfectly into their idea of evolution. So this is how we came to be. Ancient bacteria that we know today, and then we came from these things. So from simple to complex. From one-celled organisms to multicellular organisms. So it fits their plan. Okay? All right. So if there was something that you don't need to know this one, but this is stuff that those of you that go into more deeper things of biology, the book does go into depth, but I'm kind of going over this very fast, an overview. I've told you the things that's very, very important. Okay, but when you get this through a college, a lot of times they'll talk about the 3-domain system, but the 3-domain system goes back to the DNA and RNA. Okay, how they function, and then they break them up into those two things: the ancient and the true bacteria, and then all the ones that are living cells here. Okay, that's the 3-domain system. But again, you don't necessarily need to know those things. So there's all these different systems, and each one of these types of systems has their own name. Usually, if this is what you have to know: the Aristotelian idea. What's the Aristotle idea? 2 kingdoms: plants, animals. Then there's Linnaeus, who had the 5, but you don't need to know the 5. They're real easy. They're monoran, protists, fungi, animals, and plants. Okay, so those 5. But now we have the present day one, which is a 6 system. Okay, and then that's it. All right.
Have we ever concluded this?
What's that?
An entire problem?
Yeah, we just finished them all. I just usually don't go to the escape part. Okay? Can you hit the lights there, please? And please take out your books.
That's a foot. I won't cover it. Okay,
So some of you might sit there and say, okay, Curvis, what in the world? How are we going to? And you're going to be surprised at how much you can remember and how much you can know. Okay, you've got some questions on 450. if you page backwards through there, you'll see that it overviews Linnaeus, it overviews the nomenclature, and it overviews the Aristotle idea, or the whole idea behind diversity. That's kind of what happens here. So we get to page 450, and page 450 says, okay, let's do a section assessment or a section review. So let's take a look at question number 1. How are living things organized for study? Okay, there are really 3 reasons. Can you think of the 3 reasons of why living things are organized? Why would we want to organize them? Can you give me one?
To study the diversity of life.
Okay. What does organizing things together? Why is it good to put animals in with animals, plants in with plants? And what about those things that are kind of both? Yeah, we can compare them. Okay, so we organize them based on their structures. That's one reason. Okay, can you think of another reason? What about people that are studying them around the world? Why is it important for us to organize things?
Continue adding stuff to it.
Okay. Okay, so if we're going to study the ponderosa pine, how do they know what the ponderosa pine is in Korea?
Because of the name.
Yeah, and that's why you group things as well too. The scientific name tells you what you're going to be doing. So we need to have a scientific name so it's universal. It's going to be universal as we study those things. Okay? All right. And the last thing is that naming the organisms also goes along with universal acceptance. Okay. Question number 2 there says describe the system for naming species that Linnaeus developed. Real simple. What did Linnaeus develop?
Categories.
Well, how is his different than Aristotle?
Just added verbs.
Okay.
Made it more
But what did he
specific.
do? Okay.
Yeah, like Josh said, make it more specific.
Okay, yes, but he gave us something that we just went through. Yeah, okay, what names? Yes, he gave us the scientific name or the genus and species. Okay, so he gave us the genus and species. That's what Linnaeus did. All right, question number 3 says, what are the 7 categories? What are the 7 categories? You should know these already. They are? Good. Now we're pretty quiet here, okay? So did y'all get those? That's a great test question. Kingdom, phylum, class. Kingdom, phylum, class, order, family, genus, species. Okay? And you have to know them in order. In order. Okay? The 4th question there is, why do scientists avoid using common names when discussing organisms? Common name would be like, we're studying dogs. We want to get a brand new breed of dog. So we're crossing dogs. Why would you not want to say that if you're trying to, yeah, why? Okay, so what's the purpose? If it's too vague, what's the purpose? Vague is exactly right, but I'm looking for something a little bit more. You're trying to be more specific. More specific. Okay? So, but vague is okay as well too. And then up above there, pretty easy. Are foxes more closely related to sea stars or snakes? Do you see the figure up above there? They more closely related to sea stars or snakes? Snakes, because it's the next one that's in that order. Okay? Pretty tough there. Okay? Can you go over to page 453? One of the thing it's a little bit different than just that. The cladograms that we just got through doing were on the aliens. Do you remember doing those? What were they characterized by? What did you have? What was done every single time?
The size of the head, shape of the head.
Okay, that was done for every single one. Was the size of the head?
Yeah.
Really?
That's where you started from.
Yeah.
Oh, that's where you started from. But then what did it do?
Then it.
Eyes. Then what did it do? Mouth or hair or spikes. But what did it do throughout that whole thing that was the same?
Put
That's
them
what I'm
into
thinking
sections.
There were what kind of sections?
Like.
They were always A or B. One line always had what?
One choice. And like.
One line. A always had and B always had.
A always
How
had
are they
it.
different? Very good. Okay? It had it or it did not have it. Real simple, right? Well, what they want us to do here, which I want you to be able to do is, I want you to be able to do, okay, that dichotomy a diagram, or what they call here a cladogram. All right? So, look at, they've got is it four? Yeah. They've got four creatures there. Four creatures. All right? What are the four creatures?
Earthworm, trout, lizard, human.
Okay, so we've got an earthworm, a trout, a lizard, and a human. Would you say that these are very related? The
No.
evolutionists would say that these are all related when you want to compare to bacteria. They'd be in something different. Okay? But what they would like you to do there is to develop your own dichotomy diagram. All right? So now as you're looking through that, what is everything based on? You said the head size, everything was based on head size for your worksheet. Would you agree?
Mm-hmm.
What do you think everything is based on here?
Backbone.
Good. Okay? So guess what we're going to put down as number 1? 1A would be what?
Has a backbone.
Has a backbone. So what do you think B is?
Doesn't have a backbone.
Does not have a backbone. Which one of these can we define right now,
Human.
according to that diagram? Earthworm.
Does not.
So right next to this we would say earthworm. Our dissecting partner.
Oh.
But what do you notice about has a backbone? All the other ones do, so we're going to have to go to 2. Do you see what I just did?
Yeah.
Because I've got more choices. So now what do I got to do?
Like.
Good. I've got to go to A and B. So now what do we do?
Has legs and doesn't have legs.
Okay, has legs and not legs. Trout doesn't have legs.
Neither does earthworm.
Yeah, but earthworm has already been defined.
Oh, that's true.
So where does trout go?
Not legs.
2B, right? 2B would be called a trout, but what do we got to do with the one that has legs?
Go to 3.
Go to 3. So now we've got 3AB. So what's in 3AB?
Hair.
Has hair,
Doesn't have hair.
does not have hair. What can we do here now? Lizard and human, we can define them both.
Mm-hmm.
A is?
Human.
One Z or 2 Z's?
1.
So, dichotomy. Okay? May seem very difficult, but really it's not. as we get more and more things. Okay, now folks, look at this. Let's add another one. Frog. Has a backbone. Has legs. Oh, now we got to change this if we have a frog, don't we?
You could just erase lizard and then have the 4 lives in the water.
Yeah, but we have 2 organisms. Okay, so now we would have to change these around. If we added frog, we'd have to change these around, and we would have to say 3A does not have hair, and 3B has hair. This would be human, but we have 2 organisms that don't have hair, so what would we have to do?
Go to 4.
Go to 4.
Wait, why can't the 4 one be on the bottom?
What's that?
Why-
Because you always go from the top.
Makes sense.
It doesn't matter. According to people that do this, it does. According to our purposes, I guess I wouldn't care too much. All right? Because some of you might say, "Oh, well, Kerbis, look what we have. We have has. Keep it in pattern." Yeah, I'm just telling you that's what they would say. Go-tos always are in A. So go to 4. So what would we put down for 4A and B then?
Lives in water, lives on land.
Lives in water
Yeah, water.
and lives on land. And then we define both of them. Okay.
Lives in H2.
Do you have an idea? Does this make sense to you guys? Okay, giraffe. What would he have to do?
Backbone, legs, hair.
We'd have to have an extra one for hair, wouldn't we? Hair would be go-to. See, we would go here, and all of a sudden now, if we had a giraffe in here too, we would have to put both these down and say go-to, go-to. And then you would go to the next one, next number. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Okay, there will be one of these on the test, on the exam.
Wait, like we have to fill out one, or we
You're going to have to make your own.
Wait, out of how many animals?
If I wanted to make it hard, I would make it hard.
Wait, so would it just be
I'm
4?
going to choose animals, okay? Morgan, Kayla, Josh Renner, and Butler. Good luck.
Well, that's easy.
I would love to hear what the characteristics of that would be. You guys can have so much fun with people, okay? Has a huge, humongous nose. Does not have a humongous nose. Has, like Pastor Schrader would say today, has flippers for ears. Does not have flippers. No, I'm just kidding. I'm just kidding, okay? Yeah, he has a different delivery, doesn't he? Well, I mean, did you guys? It was just. I was hilarious.
Oh, Morgan.
I was watching you really laughing like the whole
Yeah, because you got to understand the guy. The guy is just he loves to debate. Okay, but his delivery. Can you imagine having to write down his sermon? He doesn't stop at the end of a sentence. He stops at the end of a sentence. We go,